Hi guys, I'm Kristen. Welcome and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm sharing the second part of my June wrap-up. If you would like to check out the first part of my wrap-up, I will link it down below and above where I talk about all of the adult fantasy books that I read. Today I'm sharing the young adult and romance books that I read this month. Enjoy! Switching into young adult, I read The Winter of the Witch, which is the third and final book in the Winter Night trilogy by Catherine Arden, and I read this for the Hephaestus prompt because there is fire or firebird on the cover. I won't get into too much detail on this one. It is the third book in a trilogy, so I can't really talk too much about the plot. This is a historical fantasy set in, I think, 1200s, so 13th century in Russia, and we follow a main character who can both see and communicate with the forest and house spirits in the world that are slowly losing their power because people have sort of stopped believing in them. This series I thought was really well done. Do go into it knowing that the first book is a lot of setup for the second and third books. The first book, if you thought it was okay, but that it was not amazing or not like that it was missing stuff, you like the idea, the concept, and like the writing, but that it didn't 100% pan out for you, definitely read at least the second book, The Girl in the Tower, to see if it's like to really give this series a shot. It has like very strong folklore elements and very, I'm pretty sure, realistic history elements in as well. Vassia has a ton of character growth over the course of the series. There is a horse companion named Solovai in the series. But if you like storylines that deal with sort of the intersection between faith and Christianity and more pagan beliefs, this series is, I think, really good for that, in sort of like respecting older traditions and newer beliefs, new culture, new progress and things. I thought this book was kind of the perfect ending for this series overall. I was quite satisfied with it. There's maybe one thing that happened at the beginning and then the end of the book that I don't love the way that it happened, but overall I was really satisfied with this series and with this story in particular. First sentence for The Winter of the Witch. Dusk, at the end of winter, and two men crossed the dooryard of a palace scarred by fire. The next two books that I read that were both YA was actually a duology, and I used this for the Eos and Nyx prompts. So these two prompts were to begin and finish a series, so I read a duology, and I read the Merciful Crow duology by Margaret Owen. I read both of these books using Scribd. The first book was The Merciful Crow, and the second book is The Faithless Hawk. So I'll talk about both books sort of together. I think that this duology was a really cute young adult in a sort of grim, dark, gentle entry into grimdark. It is based on a caste system and a reincarnation based caste system, which I thought was really interesting and super unique. The magic system is different depending on the caste that you are in. They all have different sort of birthrights, and then some people are born witches who have sort of a heightened power within that birthright. Our main character is in the lowest caste system, and she is a crow. The crows are nomadic. They don't have any one place or home. They live in sort of like bands or groups and travel around, and they are responsible for collecting the dead who have died from what is called the Sinner's Plague. The setup for the first book is that our main character, Phi's band of crows, is called to the palace to collect two bodies, and it's actually the prince and his body double or bodyguard, and they are not actually dead, but they are trying to escape the evil queen, and so they try to enlist the crow's help to help them escape from the palace. I thought both books were really good. The Merciful Crow had sort of a journey travel plot line, whereas the second book, The Faithless Hawk, had more of an undercover spy mission type of a storyline. While the first book did have a complete arc and storyline, not everything was wrapped up, or like all of the problems weren't fixed in this world. And so we go into more of that in the second book. And I think the second book was really successful in the way that it played off of what had happened in the first book. Like, it was definitely dealing with repercussions of things that had happened in the first book, while also introducing new information, new plots and storylines, new concepts within the magic, the world, and the history, but not so much so that it couldn't successfully and satisfyingly be resolved by the end of that book. There is a really painful twist that happens in the second one, so heads up for that. I will say though, I think it was extremely well done in a very satisfying way. So not spoilers, but I think this was a really unique young adult fantasy. I think perhaps there is some things that were a little bit tropey, but that's every YA. But I thought there was enough new and unique things about this story and this world that made it not feel like every other YA ever. I'll read the first sentence of each of these books, and it's kind of funny because she's sort of like, I didn't realize until I wrote them both down. So the first sentence in The Merciful Crow: Pa was taking too long to cut the boys' throats. The second book, The Faithless Hawk: Fi was taking too long to cut the girl's throat. So cute little parallel the author did there. That is it for the young adult genre. Now to get into some romance books. I did read 3 contemporary romance books this month. The first one was People We Meet on Vacation, and I used this for the Hermes prompt, which is to read a book about travel, a vacation, or a journey. What I will say about this one is that if you go into it expecting beach read, you're going to be disappointed. I think it's actually better to go into this book thinking of it as a book about friendship and about complicated friendships and the ways that certain relationships can impact other relationships in your lives. Basically, her and her guy best friend meet in college, and even though they have kind of nothing in common, they become really, really close friends. Poppy is a travel blogger and travel writer, and so every summer, her and her best friend go on a vacation together. Until 2 years ago, when something went wrong and they stopped speaking. And she decides she wants to get back in touch with him, and she reaches out to him to say, like, do you want to go on another vacation, like a summer trip together? They're trying to essentially see if they can salvage their friendship. So we do have a back and forth timeline where they are on the current timeline, the current vacation trip that they're on together, and we get flashes back and forth to various trips over the years. She's also going through sort of career, I think they call it millennial ennui, where you've reached your goals and now what? I will say that I think the thing that happened 2 years ago was really disappointing. And the back and forth timeline, while I enjoyed it for 75% of the book, towards the end, something went wrong with the way in which we learned certain information that made 2 events, one that was in a history event and one that was a now timeline, anticlimactic. It kind of ruined both of those moments because of the way in which they happened. I actually think that we the reader should have read them in the reverse order than how they were presented in the book. So while I still really, really like Emily Henry's writing, I still plan to continue reading all of Emily Henry's books from here on out. And I appreciate a lot of things about People We Meet on Vacation. I do think that there were some issues with it, and I don't think it was as good as Beach Read in the same ways that Beach Read was really good. First sentence in this book: on vacation, you can be anyone you want. Next up, I read Ravishing the Heiress by Sherry Thomas. I picked this up spur of the moment when I saw Christiane from the channel Bonjour Christy talk about this, and I did not love this book. So the concept is, it is an arranged marriage where the man, this is a historical romance, where the man is actually in love with someone else going into this marriage of convenience. Unfortunately, our main character is in love with him, but he is in love with someone else. This book is also in a back and forth timeline where we start out in the current timeline. They've been married for 8 years, and we go back and forth to see when they became engaged originally, and we see the progression of their relationship over the course of their 8-year marriage. This is the second book in a series. I did not read the first one. It wasn't necessary to understand. So I think this series is following the man, his family. That's actually another thing that I didn't like about this book, is that every now and then we would suddenly get one of the other sisters' perspectives, who I'm pretty sure she's going to be in the third book. And it just felt completely unrelated to what we were reading. So here's the thing that made me not able to connect with this book and enjoy it in a romantic way. At first, I thought I was really going to like the concept. Usually when there's like another relationship, usually that other relationship has to fall apart first, and we usually use infidelity or like a really shitty, abusive partner to make it be like, oh, okay, well, it's good that that relationship ended. He can be with this one. In this one, that didn't end that way, obviously. And so while I was really intrigued that it was something different and that I thought I was going to like that, I actually didn't end up liking that because of the back and forth timeline. We see Fitz being in love with the other woman, and he's kind of really shitty to the main character who he gets married to, and I just never really got over that. Like, he's really, really shitty, and I get it, this would suck. Like, it's not like I think he was being unreasonable. It was just that he never really seemed to do enough, in my opinion, to compensate for how he acted and treated her at the beginning. They're really open about his love for this other woman throughout their relationship, throughout their marriage. The setting of like the now timeline is essentially that other woman just recently became widowed and moves back to London. And basically the setup is that, oh, perfect, she's back. We can like be estranged in our marriage now because I'm going to go shack up with this other woman. That was a really uncomfortable place for me to start the book. So not only is Fitz in this timeline being like, listen, we're really great friends in our marriage, but like, I'm gonna leave you for this other woman. And then the back and forth that we go back in time, and it's him being like a huge asshole about this marriage of convenience. It didn't seem to make sense with the back timeline where you can see them slowly growing into respect and friendship, and like perhaps also some like a little bit of angst on his part as well, but you don't see that. It doesn't seem like where we build up to correlates with where we started in the now timeline. So this one was not successful for me. I just didn't like Fitz as a love interest. I didn't see the appeal to him. So I guess while on some hand I'm like sort of rooting for the main character to be happy, I also just was like, I don't see it. I don't see the appeal of Fitz. First sentence in this book, it was love at first sight. Okay, and then the final book that I read in the month of June was the contemporary romance, The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. Our main character, Jessica, is a single mom, kind of through strange circumstances, runs into this guy. They both go to the same coffee shop every day for like years, and they've never talked until they find out that he is in the process of developing a matchmaking app. It turns out it's like a genetic-based matchmaking app, and her friend go in for fun. The company calls Jessica and they said, we really need you to come into the office. Basically, she has gotten a 98% compatibility match with River, the guy from the coffee shop, the creator of this program, of this like genetic matchmaking app. Now, the company is, I think, maybe 3 months away from going public, so they see it as a really, really great publicity opportunity. She kind of hates this River guy, like really hates him. He also does not seem to be super interested in her either, and the company ends up offering to pay her to basically give this guy a shot, like to go on some dates, to do some publicity, and to try dating. I thought it was actually pretty good. The one thing that I will say is that the actual like fake dating starts maybe too late in the book, where it feels like a very significant amount of page time is spent setting up and leading up to her deciding to try out the dating. After that, things happen rather quickly, and all of that was pretty good. I thought that the conflict, there's always like a conflict around the 75% mark, or like in the third act of a romance book. The conflict was believable. The conflict was something that is understandably going to cause a rift, but also something that wasn't so big that it couldn't be resolved. Editing Kristen here. I forgot to say, which I think is extremely important, that if sort of the fatherhood figure vibe is your particular fetish, you should definitely check out this book. First sentence in this book is, Jessica Davis used to think it was an honest-to-God tragedy that only 26% of women believed in true love. Okay, that is it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what one of your favorite books for the month of June was. If you did the readathon, let me know. I'd love to check out your wrap up for the month of June as well down below. Thanks so much for joining today, guys. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you are interested. I am really, really close to 200 subscribers as of the day of filming, so I'd really love to hit that sometime soon. Anyway, that is it for me today. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.